Welcome to Motherhood. Whether you're 18 or 80, Dr. Christina Hibbert, clinical psychologist, author, and mother of 6, is here to help you through the ups and downs, the joys and frustrations, the new information from experts, and the stories of happiness and heartbreak from real moms. Remember, if you can, tell your mama to listen too.
And I'll make everything all right.
Here's Christy.
Welcome to Motherhood. It's me, Dr. Christina Hibbert, here to help you overcome, to become, and to flourish in this sometimes anxiety-provoking experience we call motherhood. Today we're going to be talking about that exactly, anxiety, which is actually more common than you would think, especially in women and especially in mothers. Of course, we all know that we worry about our kids and we might get a little stressed from time to time or a lot stressed from time to time. And so it seems like it's natural, quote unquote, that we might have anxiety in motherhood. But as we'll talk about today, while it's natural to have moments of anxiety or days of anxiety, it's, sometimes that anxiety can become more of an issue, more of an anxiety disorder, something that's a little more difficult to cope with. But everything we talk about today will help you, whether you're dealing with that more extreme anxiety or just the everyday kind of anxieties that we all have as moms. Today's show is going to be helpful for everyone, so stick around. I just want to thank you for joining us here on Motherhood, and I hope you'll join us online on my website at drchristinahibbert.com for all kinds of resources, articles. I have a blog post related to today's episode that you can find the link to in the description for today. And also join us on Facebook, Growing Through Motherhood. If you haven't been added, ask to be added to the group. We kind of fluctuate with how much we talk and chat in there, but it's a great place to connect with each other and to get to, you get the first updates on when new episodes are posted, and you can also get in touch with some of the guests that I have on the show that are fabulous, like the one we'll have today, whom I'll introduce in just a moment. And of course, all over social media, wherever you are, I'm there, so please find me and connect with me, Dr. Christina Hibbert, there. Now, as I said, anxiety is actually a pretty common issue for women and mothers especially, and it's so common, in fact, that a lot of women and moms especially are told, well, that's normal. It's just, you're experiencing anxiety that's debilitating or that's completely impacting your life in negative ways. Well, all moms feel anxious. And as I said before, we're going to talk about today how that's not exactly normal, especially when it gets to that degree. But because we do tend to worry and we do tend to get stressed over just all of the things we have to keep track of as moms and how are our kids doing, and like today, for instance, is the last day of school officially. So officially, as I'm recording this, all of my kids are out of school, the college, high school, junior high, and elementary schoolers. And they're all like, yay, excited. And I'm like, freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? So yes, I have anxiety about, okay, now I have to get into summer mode. And what are we going to do here? And how are we going to keep them all entertained? But, that's some kind of anxiety that we all can relate to. And then there's the more extensive kind, which I myself can relate to as well. I do realize that even though I've talked a lot about how I struggle with depression, my depression really stems from anxiety, and it really comes from this kind of brain that won't shut down. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. Trouble sleeping because of that. Sometimes, feel like you have to do everything. You're always trying to kind of remember everything or be on top of everything. We're going to talk about strategies today and coping tools for how to deal with that. Because in fact, even though people think that depression is the most common experience for women, it's actually not. Anxiety is actually the most common mental illness that women experience throughout their lifetime. So if you haven't already experienced it in that more extreme form, you might, and it's related to hormones, it's related to sleep, a lot of issues that we'll talk about and touch on today. But also, if you haven't, then chances are someone in your family will, or your daughters will, or someone that you know very closely will. So all of these things we talk about today can help us to find that more relaxed place, to find that place where we know what to do with those worries and those anxieties when they come. So that's why I'm really excited to introduce our fabulous guest today, Catherine Gardner. Catherine, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you. We've been long connected online, and this is kind of our first official meeting. Face to face through Skype, right?
That's right.
So but I have to say I'm excited. I get to go to Chicago as part of my Motherhood tour and go and speak to a group with Catherine there. And so, yeah, everybody, she jumped on board. And so I'm going to Chicago. So if you're in Chicago, find out when we're going to be there and come. And if you're not in Chicago, then email me at support@drchristinahibbert.com and invite me to come, because that's what I'm doing for the next several months. So I'm really excited about that.
Great.
But enough about that. Let's talk about you. So let me tell everybody how fabulous you are. So Catherine Gardner is a licensed clinical professional counselor. She lives in Illinois. That's why Chicago. She's been working with adults in counseling since 2001. Her specialty is working with women to cope with reproductive health issues, fertility, pregnancy, perinatal loss. It's kind of how we got connected through the perinatal community. She works with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, postpartum wellness, and menopause, because I'm sure we'll touch on hormones today, but those are all linked, right? All of those things are linked because of all the hormones, right? So she's also started a specialty counseling practice in the suburbs of Chicago, New Dawn Wellness Group, which is affiliated with OBGYNs and works with other kinds of physicians and physical therapists for women's health. And it's all in the same building, which that sounds just like an amazing practice. I wish we had more of those kinds of clinics around. Definitely. And so I'm really impressed with all that she's done to build this practice where she gets to help women come together and get all of the kinds of help that they need. And she knows a lot about anxiety, what we'll be talking about today. And you can find out more about Catherine at her website, newdawnwellnessgroup.com. You're doing a lot of great things. So we're glad to have you with us today, Catherine.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm excited to have the wonderful audience across different states and the folks that follow you all be able to gain from this information.
Yeah, me too, because it's such an important topic. And that's why when you suggested it, I was like, yes, why haven't we done more on anxiety, right? So what were I kind of threw it out to you, like, what do you want to talk about? So what do you think as far as anxiety goes? Why did that come to your mind when you're thinking of talking to moms?
Yes. You know what? The reason I would say is because in the individual counseling that I provide, each woman comes in at different points in her life, at different stressors going on, at different points in forming her family or struggles to form a family. And each of them will say that there's been something that has worried them, something that they have felt they wish they had more control over, that their body is responding to that stress. Maybe it's causing them restless sleep. Maybe it's causing them these weird stomach aches. They go, oh, I don't feel like eating, or I'm eating all these junk foods. So women who come in, I find that is one of the most common topics. And I love it. I love being able to sit down with each woman and write about it and get the information out, that there is help, that it's something that you can manage, and it's something that even though you may not know what's triggering it, that's what we can start with, is let's identify what's triggering it for you, and then let's jump right in. Let's get you some tools that you feel like even from that therapy session, you can leave and feel like you've got something new you can try.
Yeah, I'm so with you. It's interesting because I really love working with anxiety too, because like you say, there is so much you can do. It's sometimes with depression, it's hard. It's really hard to get people motivated, but I feel like people that have anxiety, they're sort of got too much energy and need to know where to direct it versus trying to find energy in some way. So, everybody out there listening, if you are struggling with anxiety in any way, today's almost like a little, kind of like a little therapy session for you to kind of get you started on a path, like you said. And let's start by talking about how do these women who are listening to us today, how do they identify what these triggers might be? Because like you said, there's so many different options what they could be.
Yes. So some women will already have an awareness of themselves and say, I recognize that something going on in my life is looping over and over for me. And that's a great warning sign. That gives them the information, hey, this is something your mind is not settled with. It feels kind of unresolved. And maybe that's unresolved because you worry about what others think about how you're going to deal with it. Or maybe it's something that comes from old stuff in your life and you were criticized for how you handled that situation. So recognizing any thoughts that just loop over and over for a woman. The second level of that is, what's your body telling you? Is your body starting to give you these signals that says, hey, you're restless? Or, as I will go over with you some more, how does anxiety start to raise up to agitation? I say the worst feeling with my kids is when I'm that grumpy mom and I say I'm cranky and I'm irritable. Well, hey, that might be stemming from a sign I need to pay attention to, that I'm anxious about something, that something feels unsettled for me, that I need to pay attention to. That's an indicator to me it's time to start stepping back and focusing on, where did this come from and what can I do to change it?
Mm-hmm. Right. So, okay, that's great. So breaking it down into kind of the inside stuff, the internal versus the external. And just before we kind of go more into that, let's back up a second and talk about the big things like you're talking about, we were talking about earlier, like sleep and hormones. To me, those two kind of come up as being like some of the biggest, right? How do those impact anxiety in women in particular?
I often get that question. It's kind of a chicken and the egg dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if I want to sort out, well, which one came first? Was I woken up by my baby or my child, or a child with a missing sock in the middle of the night, and I can't get back to sleep? So now I'm laying there and I'm alone with my thoughts. Well, I'm going to wake up that next morning and I'm not going to feel well rested. I'm not going to feel refreshed. I'm not going to feel sharp. And from that, that's everything I'm going to have to face in that upcoming day is going to feel like it's knocking me over, or I feel like it's on top of me, or I feel like it's annoying.
Yeah.
And because of that, I have to focus on, okay, this is how one bad night's sleep impacted me. Am I even aware of, maybe I also have a lot on my mind, and I'm maybe not, I don't have time during the day. I'm go. So many of us as moms, we are on the go. We are the caretakers. We are, I call them the operational managers of the household. We take care of all the details. So we don't have the time to stop and think about, I got that email that there's a change of plans on Saturday, and I'm not sure what we're going to do about all that. Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't have time to deal with that, and now that caught up with you in your sleep. Mm-hmm. So chicken or the egg, which one came first? Was I woken up by exterior things, the temperature in the room, etc., and then it left me with my thoughts to overthink? Or am I feeling unsettled by a conversation I had with my spouse or a family member that it's not sitting well with me?
Yeah.
Throughout the monthly cycle, we're going to be more sensitive to decreased sleep, to poor nutrition, to a lack of exercise. And I love your stuff on exercise.
Thank you.
In those times of the month where there are times when, again, during ovulation and the estrogen peaks, or during progesterone, right? The 7 to 10 days before the woman begins her period, progesterone starts to go up to its highest peak. Then on the first day of the period, it comes crashing down. Maybe her reactions, her sensitivity is because of that peak, or maybe it's because of that crash. So all of those other lifestyle and kind of self-care tools, if they weren't just right, her waves of emotion, and then again, they change during postpartum and they change during perimenopause and menopause, that is unfortunately going to leave her in a position where she feels like she can't bounce back. And we want to help each woman listening that you can get back on track.
Yeah, that's so great. I love how you took those two and then talked about, especially with sleep, like the internal and external factors, even just within that. And then plus the hormones. It wasn't until I myself, I know I'm super sensitive to hormone shifts. And so, I get really moody. I get a total PMS-y attitude, all of that. Yes, I admit. And I started to realize, gosh, I really sleep way worse in the second half of my cycle. So I started doing research on that because I'm like, that has to be a real thing, because it really seems like it's a real thing. I cannot sleep. And there's that link between your hormones, anxiety, and not sleeping. It's like you feel more agitated, and because of that, you're not going to be able to rest as well, and you can't calm down as much, and then you're not getting the same quality sleep that you might be getting. So they're all linked together. And like you said, that might be because, it's just that time of the month and there's extra stress in your life, and that's what's going on. Or maybe it's that you're not sleeping because you have been staying up late having fun, and that's going to catch up to you and make you more moody when your hormones kick in. Or, and like you said, not everybody is super sensitive to all those shifts in hormones, but it's important for us all to know that that's what it is. It's if you're sensitive to those changes, like you said, that progesterone, that estrogen kind of up and down, then we're more likely to have anxiety too, during that second half of the cycle especially, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's really important. So, okay, so if we have sleep and hormones as two of the main factors or triggers even, let's talk about some of the other internal and external triggers. Let's start with some of the external. I think that's a little bit, more obvious and easier to deal with. Well, maybe not. If it's a difficult person, maybe not. But anyway, let's start with some of the external factors that might influence, be a trigger to anxiety.
Yes. So external to us, we are up against so many different factors. And I'll use the joke because I'm from Chicago, and we have had an awfully dark winter. And even that factor of, as you talk about, the separation of depression and anxiety in the brain, that even that factor of multiple days of, if you live in a region where there's a lot of cloud cover, where it's been gloomy, you're indoors. My kids were stir crazy.
Yes.
You're feeling.
By the way, how many kids do you have, and how old are they?
Sure. So I have two little ones.
Oh.
I have Braden. He's 4, almost 4.5, and then I have Adeline, and she will be 2 in August.
Oh my goodness! I didn't know your kids were so little. Wow, no kidding. Okay, wow. Busy.
That's right.
We always like to know. We want to know about your kids too. Everybody here is a mom, so we all want to know. So
I'll talk about them all day long.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
So they do. They have that excess energy inside a home throughout the winter. And moms, we are also then, like you said, trying to be creative. Okay, you can only play with so much Play-Doh. You can only watch so much technology, whatever age they are. And so we're trying to look at those external factors of, okay, this is something, and we're going to divide. Things I can control, things I cannot control. And I cannot change the weather. There are external factors to us that are going to make us more restless or antsy when we have a lot more in the schedule. You called it mayhem, the month of May.
Yes.
So many families. I often see the next upswing will be September, when everybody's kind of pushing back into what's our new routine, where are the parents, what are our schedules, whether you're working, whether you're at home and maintaining that schedule. You, again, as the operational manager, we are the ones who know all the parts and pieces of what each of our kids need. And those external factors of, oh my goodness, I have so much more to do decision making and so much more to do problem solving.
Yeah.
That's when things are going smoothly. That's when our finances are in line. That's when our spouse is in a good mood. That is when our extended family is cooperative. But what happens when we get an email that says, change your plans for Memorial Day? Wait, that doesn't work for me. How am I supposed to advocate for myself? Now that puts me on that worry wheel.
Yeah. And
I find myself looping over, how am I going to problem solve this interpersonal issue? I don't want it to become a conflict.
Right.
And so external to us, we're picking up on other people's energy and where their moods or health is at. And then just, again, our busyness and schedules.
That's so great. You have a great way of explaining that. That was really perfectly said. Perfectly said. I was just thinking of just the other day, I had scheduled to go for a walk with a friend. We've kind of made a goal that we're going to at least go once a week together because we both need a sounding board, and neither one of us are good at like finding someone and asking about it. So we made this scheduled, and her dad showed up from out of town, like passing through town, just like 20 minutes before she was supposed to leave, and she was supposed to drop her daughter a dance. And what should have been, like you say, a good thing maybe would have been fine if she had known. It totally just set her off. She was late. Her daughter was late. She was all stressed and worried. So it's like even things that aren't necessarily, quote, bad things can cause that anxiety, right? I mean, it's not just, and that's important for us all to realize, it's not just all the hard things. I mean, the good things in life can be stressful too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's the internal. right?
Yeah.
So internally, most women are constantly body scanning. I think once we become moms, we have such a large responsibility, and our desire is for our health to be at its best. Although yet we put ourselves last
I
most of the
know.
time.
I know.
But we are checking, and because I'm affiliated with this wonderful team of doctors, and again, I am so proud of all of them and how much they have appreciated the mental health, the emotional health of what each of the women that we treat, that we're managing and monitoring how their health is, and that we're not overlooking that aspect of their visit to the office.
Mm-hmm.
Because what if there's something that hurts? What if there's something that doesn't feel right? What if a woman just doesn't feel like herself? That internal biology is giving them a signal. Well, sometimes we react proportionately to that signal and we think, okay, gotta go get it checked out. And then sometimes we overreact. We think, oh no, worst case scenario. And we've all done it, where we take the way that our body feels, and we can correctly or incorrectly read what that's telling us to do as the next step of taking care of ourselves. But again, another trigger to our worry, to our fears. Well, who's going to take care of everything else if I'm, yes, like your concussion, if I'm not well, who's going to step in? And hopefully we have a wonderful support network around us, but many people do not. And that can even raise the level of anxiety. Wow, if I'm not my best self, what is going to happen, and what is going to be that ripple effect? Our body is so interesting, is how much it does signal to us. Well, when you do get that knot in your stomach, yes, maybe you're going to go give a speech, and the performance anxiety, what's the audience going to think of me, and am I going to do well? Am I going to come across the way I wanted to? Am I going to seem knowledgeable, or am I going to feel judged?
Yeah.
Am I going to feel like I looked incompetent in some way? And so the stomach ache gives the brain the signal, hey, something feels dangerous. It's not a physical danger at that moment, more of an emotional danger.
Right. It's that threat, it's that fight or flight, and it's sort of the signal, which is good and healthy, can, like you say, we can sometimes respond in a healthy way and sometimes completely feel like it's life or death threatening when it's really not. It's just something in our head.
Yes.
Right, exactly. So and you mentioned something that I wanted to kind of just throw in there too for everybody. You mentioned like a phobia, speaking phobia, or so there's different kinds of anxiety that we're talking about, and people listening might not have heard some of these terms, but for instance, like social phobia, maybe being scared of kind of being out in public with other people or having to talk to people, or social anxiety, I mean, or a specific phobia, like having anxiety over something that you're afraid of, or what other types? Why don't you mention a few?
Yes. So the anxiety is the main umbrella. And then under that umbrella are all these different subcategories. And some of them are connected more with worry, some are connected more with apprehension, and some are more connected with fear. But you have this variety. And some women will go to their doctor or go to an emergency room with anxiety symptoms, and they're given these big, scary terminology words, like panic.
Yeah.
Well, panic is the body's natural alarm system. Anxiety is a type of lookout, right? It looks out. Is there danger? Is there the bear coming to get me in the woods? Well, we're in modern society. Typically, we're not fighting off bears. Not in Chicago. We're not fighting off bears.
Yes.
But we're fighting off something that feels like it can be a threat, something that feels like it can be a danger to us, more perhaps of an emotional danger. So panic is when the body, however, alerts so strongly that it floods the tissues of the body with adrenaline, telling us, oh my goodness, this is very, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But if a woman can't put her finger on, I don't know why I'm having these sensations, there wasn't a direct, what we call provoked trigger. There may be an unprovoked trigger for her, something she was thinking about, something her body in its body scan picked up on that reminded her of the last time she was having panic symptoms. Some women don't like to fly, and that brings them panic. They see all the potential dangers. Some women panic about their child leaving for kindergarten. Who's going to know what he needs? How's he going to ask where to go to the bathroom?
That's true.
So different things can set off panic. There's trauma response. If you've been through a life event that was very frightening, that had large amounts of threat to it, we can replay that, and that can be a variety of things. I see a lot of moms after birth trauma, maybe in delivering their baby. It didn't go the way that they expected. It felt very traumatic and scary. And so we work to identify what were the aspects of that trauma. There's generalized anxiety, and that's a woman who's a lot of worry. That may be she has worriers in her family. That may be that based on ways that she watched adults around her worry, that impacted her as becoming a worrier. There is also, yes, the types of phobia, and I feel like I'm forgetting one. Is there another category? I feel like I've got...
Well, I mean, I loved how you explained that, but also, I mean, I would just add in there, which go into these categories, like the OCD type.
Yes.
Which is kind of it really is based on more of a fear, phobia of something, so you're doing something to kind of compensate. Or in PTSD, you talked about trauma, so when you have that post-traumatic reaction, those kinds of things. But yeah, I think you covered it pretty darn well.
There's a lot of them. And so some women will say it reaches all the way to the point of a disorder, and it's very impactful in her life, and she needs treatment. And it's the best thing for her is to go take care of herself, because then she will bring a different vibe back to all of the responsibilities she has.
Yes, so important. So you've mentioned this a couple times, and we talk about this all the time, taking care of ourselves and how important it is and how difficult it is. And I even mentioned a minute ago how I have to force myself to take care of myself too, because it's just, we're busy and it's hard and all of that. But, you're right. If we can take care of ourselves when we start to notice that we're having more anxiety, more worry, more panic, more fear in our life, we're going to be able to manage it a lot easier than if we wait until it does get to that really, really intense proportion where you absolutely need treatment right now because you can't function. So let's talk about that. First of all, you mentioned, first was to, identify what are your triggers. So I would suggest for everybody out there listening, as Kathy was talking, what did you feel resonated with you? Did something that she said, did you go kind of like, oh yeah, that's me? Or, have a little feeling of that, then pay attention to that. And then once we kind of start to know what the triggers are, then we can maybe start to look at our thinking. It's a lot to do. Anxiety is so heavily based in our head, is it not?
It is. And it is that mind-body connection. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it is. Once you can identify the trigger, we can spend more time either preventing that situation or having the preparation, right? Yeah. Prepping ourselves. Okay, I'm going to get on an airplane. We're going to go on a trip. These are the things that I'm worried about in sitting down at the next get-together with my family member that triggers me. So it's great to have those tools. But a lot of women will ask, but how do I get relief now? Mm-hmm. I'm feeling like it's rolling from day to day to day. And again, each adrenaline trigger lasts 72 hours in our bloodstream. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that ripple effect. If this morning somebody caught me off in traffic, okay, there's trigger number one. Then anything else that is going to pile on top of that is going to have that piggyback effect. And a lot of moms will say, I just can't come from underneath this.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. I haven't heard that before about 72 hours. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
No wonder you feel kind of agitated so long after, and every little thing starts feeling like the biggest thing ever, right?
Yes. And then you crash. The adrenaline took you up on this buzz, but then you're so fatigued from all of that hype and being worked up. So one of the ways that women can check in with themselves is saying, how high or low would I describe my anxiety to feel within my body right now? And I use the scale of 0. I'm going to use my hands. I'm Italian, so I use my hands a lot. But
I like it.
So 0 to 10 could be her scale, where she recognizes at 0, I'd say, yeah, I'm calm and content. And most of us say, when was the last time I was there?
When I was
All the
asleep,
way
maybe.
up.
If we're lucky. Sometimes not even then, right?
Last time I was at the beach. I love the beach.
Maybe
That's my happy place.
Alone. Okay, yes, yeah.
Exactly. If I'm at a 1 or 2 on that scale, maybe something like that, change in plans email has come in, and it's shifted how much I'm worrying about it, and it's sort of looping in the background of what I'm doing in my day. But maybe she would rate herself at a 3 and say, I'm starting to get restless in what I'm doing around the house. Maybe I'm not focused. I'm in this room, and then I go to another room, and I go, hey, what was I doing here? Maybe at a 5 on her anxiety scale, she's going to feel like, I'm just starting to get more physical symptoms. My shoulders are tense. My stomach is in those knots. Women get migraines and headaches from this kind of perpetual anxiety and worry. At a 7, now she's starting to get a harsh tone of voice, and now she's starting to get agitated at everyone. All the way up, you can rate yourself all the way up to that 10. I'm at a full-blown panic. Everybody go away. Feeling annoyed, feeling all of those physical sensations from, again, the body going into fight or flight. Mm-hmm. So even if 2 or 3 times a day, each woman checks in with herself and says, well, how high would I say I am on this scale? And then we'll go over what are the tools to bring me back down.
I love that. It's so simple, and we can all do that a couple of times a day. You can do it without actually really taking any time. You can do it while you're doing something else, really. Yes. And it's taking care of yourself. That is taking care of yourself.
That's it. That's it. Each woman is going to have a different place where she would put herself in those numbers.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment. It's that you're aware of it, and now you're looking to, what am I going to do about it? What can I do to control this and feel like, okay, and now that category of what I want to be able to control, I want to be able to use my self-care techniques. Okay. Sure. At the lower numbers, deep breathing, right? Dr. Andrew Weil, he has on his website the YouTube video of 4-7-8 breathing. Count in for 4, hold for 7, release for 8. That's very helpful at a 1 or 2. Giving yourself that exhale. Maybe at a 3 or 4, you know what? I'm feeling the tension. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to change the radio in the car and just be able to change my mood from that. Yeah. If I'm at a 5 or 6, okay, you know what? I need to write this all down. What's been bothering me? But above a 5, we need more tools to exert it out. The adrenaline has gotten so high within our system, we need a way to expel that from us. So that's where recognizing, okay, do I need to run a flight of stairs? Do I need to do something cardio? Do I need to throw a squish ball against the side of the wall and really feel like I have that ability to pounce in a healthy, productive way? Yeah. Then you come down to the 7, then you come down to the 5, then you can go and take the bubble bath.
Ah, that's so good. I love the bubble bath. I also love the activity. I mean, really, like you said, and I'm going to just put the plug in here for exercise or moving your body, which is how I redefine exercise. It's just being active. It's moving your body as much as you can throughout the day. But it is one of the best ways to get rid of that extra energy, to help calm yourself, to release endorphins, to actually change the neurochemistry of your brain. It changes those neurotransmitters that make you feel anxious or depressed or whatever it might be. And you don't have to go jog for, an hour to get that, like you said. Or can I just get out and walk to the end of the corner and back? Can I walk up the stairs? Can I throw a ball? Or I love the little paddle ball, the little kids game with the little thing attached to the string. I'm actually it's like my hidden talent. I'm really good at it. So I have one in my room, and I even had one in college, and I would put draw a boy's face on it. So when the boys were being awful, or I had a terrible date, I would just smash it over and over. But whatever it is for you, right? Yeah. It gets out all of that energy, and like you say, it brings you down, and I really appreciate how you describe that. I really, really do. I haven't heard it described that way, that when you rate yourself, you can start to see where you are, and that determines what you're going to need. I mean, that is really, really a beautiful way to explain that.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So everybody out there, okay, so these are things you can do at home. You can start to
Right away.
rate yourself. And like she said, if you're a 1 or 2, you can try some deep breathing, which again, that 4-7-8 method is a wonderful method. And then if you're a little bit higher, if you're too high, let's definitely do something to kind of get some of that anxiety out. So then you can actually think clearly enough to kind of employ some other techniques, right? So what are some other things that people can do when they when they kind of calm down enough to understand maybe what the trigger is or something that's going through their head? I mean, again, we kind of touched on thoughts, but let's talk for a minute about those irrational thoughts that are such a big part of anxiety. What do we do with those?
They are.
That's like a whole other conversation, but we'll just, give you a few tips here, right?
We'll jump into it.
Yeah.
They can torment us because what we think about in a situation can really impact our feelings and our behaviors. So the model that I'm referring to is called cognitive behavioral therapy. And Dr. Aaron Beck, he wonderfully showed us how they're connected. The trigger leading to what he referred to as automatic thinking, something that we would spontaneously jump to and maybe assume, or a conclusion we would jump to. And unfortunately, then that puts us into a place of the uncomfortable feelings and the ways that we're going to act or act out. So the anxiety for us, again, can be real or imagined. It can be part of this rational or irrational variety.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of practice. Some women get frustrated. Boy, it's so hard to figure this part out. I said, that's fine. You can sit down and start to write out what you've been thinking about, right as it's happening, or right pretty close to it. Or, yes, that's what your counselor or somebody that you trust can sit down and help you to explore. Am I thinking rationally, logically about this? Or am I thinking irrationally and I'm thinking of invalid types of thoughts? There are so many examples of us in our day-to-day life of ways that we could jump to a conclusion or start to mind read.
Yeah.
Well, my husband's sitting on the couch and he's not making eye contact tonight. What happened? Is he upset? What's going on? Where are his thoughts? And we as women are very commonly putting that back on ourselves. Was it something I did? Is it something, is he mad at me? Maybe I shouldn't have made that comment at dinner. And, because of that type of analysis that we're constantly in, it is important to check ourselves and say, well, I can try to mind read him, but I'm probably not going to end up with accurate assessment. Right. I need to stop and ask and follow through on, well, if I clarify, he may say, oh, I was just thinking about the sports game I was just watching.
Exactly.
And it really had nothing to do with me or dinner or anything else that's between us in the relationship. So it's important to check in with others around us that we're not jumping to conclusions, or the what if thinking is very common among moms. All of the negative predictions. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if the doctor says this? What if the pediatrician looks at me sideways because I've got more questions today?
Right.
all of those things can give us anxiety that, oh, maybe I'm not doing this job right as a mom.
Yeah.
Maybe it's me. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Other moms don't seem to have this, and social media can really beat us up, where moms will compare themselves and feel like, well, other moms don't have these kinds of irrational thoughts. And that's not always accurate.
Yeah.
Because every one of us is different as to how much our thin-skinned versus thick-skinned reactions to things. But we all are trying to do just the very best job that we can.
That's right. That's such important advice for everybody out there listening. I hope you heard that. We really are, and that means you are really doing the best job you can. And when you're not, then you just do something a little different, or try something a little different so that you can feel like you're doing the very best job you can. But you're so right. I was almost laughing because it's so true. The mind reading thing. We all want our significant other, our husband, or partner to read our minds, and then we try to do it with them, and of course we can't read them. I remember the first time after my husband and I were married, when I was like, what are you thinking? And he said, nothing. And I'm like, that's impossible, But I've learned he's literally thinking nothing. Like you said, they're just thinking about the game or whatever. So we really need to, and, ask, like you said, and it's a cognitive distortion, to use the fancy term for irrational thinking, just like catastrophizing, the what ifs, minimizing, oh, it's not that big of a deal, it's fine. I mean, that leads to a lot of anxiety because we just don't deal with problems. And all of these are not healthy ways of thinking. So we need to realize that. And like you say, when we identify those, then we can have a choice to act differently, to ask, say, hey, what are you thinking? Or, hey, I really do need help. Or, hey, this really is a big deal to me, or whatever it might be, right? And be more honest.
No, you just hit on a key point, that in that comparison, a lot of new moms will say, well, my mother didn't have these anxieties. Or my older sisters who have kids, they didn't worry like this. Or other moms seem to be able to pack up all the kids and go to Target with no problem.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say. It's hard to say what each woman becomes overwhelmed with, and it's important to ask for help and to be able to find other like-minded women.
Yes.
If you have your tribe, your group of women that share with you, that they too are concerned about those things, or have wondered about those things, or criticize themselves for those same things, there is a sort of validation and camaraderie in being able to have your people. And I will tell women, sometimes we get very isolated. We're all having different schedules. You can't catch up with each other as friends. I said, so find small ways to text each other, or ideally, sure, we'd love to go out to dinner if it worked out, so that we can spend that time in this sisterhood. That, no, I'm worrying about these things, but it's just part of my learning. And as moms with older children will say, you are constantly learning. It never stops.
That's right. Amen to that, sister. My oldest is almost 21, which I can't believe, but boy, it's like, oh, there's just new phases. It's like when they're little and you think, oh, they finally sleep through the night, but now they're teething. And so then there's that. Oh, now they're potty training. It's like you get out of one phase that's tough, and then you just get into another one. And it kind of just doesn't end, right? So you're right. Find your tribe and support, because I do think that that's a big issue. Like you say, it causes a lot of anxiety when you start to feel like you're the only one that doesn't feel, that doesn't love every moment, or that isn't having a perfect home or family or whatever it might be. And, I heard this wonderful talk about social media not too long ago, talking about two of the main reasons why it's so harmful to us is, one, they called idealized reality, because we not only present an idealized reality, but also you perceive that from others. And two is then the downward comparison. So you compare downward and think I'm less than that because my reality isn't like that. Even though, and I'm aware of that all the time, because sometimes I'll go on my Instagram and think, wow, my life looks so wonderful on Instagram. but man, I'm a mess right now, and I just want to show the mess. But then it's like, but it doesn't look pretty on Instagram. I don't know. So sometimes on Facebook I'll show it, because you can show a lot uglier stuff on Facebook. But anyway, it's not that I don't want to be real, but that's just how it is. We need to realize that, we need to find not only people online to follow and be part of that are, like-minded and can actually be real with us and we can actually relate to, but in our real lives, we need that support. And that's where, all of these tools we're talking about today, if you can do all these things with the support of people that care about you, or that can help you, and you can ask for that kind of help, you're just going to be so much better off. We really can't do it alone. No. So, okay, so let me kind of back up and recap here, and then I have another question to kind of wrap us up. So we've talked about, first of all, identifying your internal and external triggers. That once you identify those, you can start to then sort of examine those and see how you might be able to change them. If you can change them, sometimes it might require more help to know how to change those things. We can also start to monitor ourselves and do that self-care practice of just checking in a couple of times a day and being able to rate yourself on that scale of 1 to 10. How anxious am I right now, or how worried, or whatever word you want to use for that. And then using that to then help you know what you need to do to kind of help you calm down, whether it be breathing and relaxation, or whether it be doing some of this thought stuff like we talked about after, of course, calming down, like we talked about that too. That's important. And then, identifying some of those irrational thoughts that might be holding us back. And you mentioned cognitive behavioral therapy, which is wonderful. That's exactly what Catherine's been talking about. And for those who are interested, you can go on my website and look up thought management. And I have some free thought records you can download and a couple of videos showing you how to use a thought record if you want to try some stuff on your own. Also, my last 2 books also have the thought records in them. But sometimes it's just not enough to do it on your own. And it's really hard. I agree. I think changing your thoughts, and I particularly love using a thought record to do that, or writing it down like you say, or at least being aware of it and keeping it on your radar and trying to look for it when it's happening, so that you can have that choice of whether you want to continue to believe these things that you're believing or not. I think that's one of the most powerful things I've ever personally learned to do. And I love teaching it to clients for that very reason. So what can women do then if they've tried these things and it's just not enough? Like, where do they go from there?
Yeah. So our goal always is, let's take care of ourselves. Let's do everything natural that we can to bring our body back into balance, to prevent some of the triggers that we've talked about today, to be able to prepare for events or situations that are upcoming in our lives where we say, ooh, okay, that may bring me some worry and some apprehension. Beyond that, we advocate that it is important to ask for help. Mm-hmm. So looking around you for who are the professionals that can help you. Many of the doctors, they want to hear about what are the symptoms that you're having. Some doctors may tell you they're not sure about this, or they've never heard of that. Then go to another source. Mm-hmm. I think we can get so quickly discouraged because of the way that medical professionals have an expertise in our lives. But there are a lot of professionals that can support and show you relief. The counseling, even in a handful of sessions, just sitting down like we're doing today, yeah, and going through, who am I, where am I getting stuck, what keeps triggering me, a woman is going to go home and already feel some relief. Yeah. If the therapy, if the natural changes in nutrition and exercise and sleep routines, vitamin intake, the essential oils, those are wonderful as well.
I love
if those are not making a difference, there is relief. And so talking to a physician about, is there something that I can take that would be prescribed to help and change the way my body reacts to things? There are 2 types of anti-anxiety medications. There are those that can be taken on a regular basis, maintaining, again, the way your body manages all those chemicals. And then there are some anti-anxiety medications that are taken just in the moment. When things get really tough, when you're on a 9 or 10 on that scale, you go, boy, I've tried every tool and nothing's helping. So the doctor will walk through with a woman what is best for her, and where she's at in this moment and what she could use long-term in her life.
That's great. And that's a great place. We've kind of come full circle now. And I really appreciate that ending point of, asking for help and continuing to ask for help or to reach out until you find the right solution for you. Because you're right, it's not a one size fits all, as in anything that we talk about really for motherhood, but we have to figure out what works for us and can keep asking and reaching out until you find that person or people that can support you in what's going to work for you. Yeah. Well, thank you, Catherine Gardner, everybody. You did such a great job. I really learned a lot from you today. I love the way you explained all that. It was beautiful. And I hope everybody out there learned as much as I did, and I hope you're able to utilize some of the tools that Catherine suggested, which are really great ideas for just simple things you can try starting today to help reduce your anxiety. and hopefully we can all feel a little bit more calm and relaxed, even if it's summer vacation or holidays or back to school or whatever it might be. You can still use these tools to help you get to a more relaxed place. So hopefully you will listen to this a few times if you need to, and start to employ the things Catherine shared with us. So, and remember to go to Catherine's website at newdawnwellnessgroup.com for more about her wonderful practice and all the work she's doing, especially if you're in the Chicago area. Thanks again, Catherine.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And for everybody else, thank you for tuning in. And I hope next week you'll be back to continue to grow through motherhood with us here on Motherhood Radio. Because as you know, it's a lot better to grow through it and to do it together as we do each week here. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.